Okay, it's recording, so let's open with prayer. Holy God, we thank you for the ways that you connect us one to another. We thank you for the history of Monte Vista and of Nob Hill, of which you have been a part. Help us to embrace this history as we look to the future in ways that you will continue to be present to us and call us into a new opportunity to serve and to be connected together. We thank you for Gary and his willingness to be present with us today, and for all who are gathering. Bless the food that we share from our virtual connections and the fellowship that we engage in today and always. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
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 May I begin, Dawn?
Absolutely. It's all yours.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Hi, lots of old friends and several new friends. I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if you all can see the view from Nob Hill's ozone. I see lots of thumbs up. Good. Well, nice to speak with you, neighbors and friends, today. I've been involved with the Nob Hill Neighborhood Association pretty solid since about 2007. I grew up in Albuquerque, and I got to know Nob Hill. I attended Sombra Del Monte Christian Church and grew up there with my parents. I went down to UNM for college, and I didn't know much about any area of town except Hoffmantown, where I lived. And but when I came down to university, I would come down Lomas, and occasionally I would take a little side street like Hermosa or Aliso or Solano. I said, boy, there's something special about this area. And I've spent the last 30 years now just figuring that out. So I would like to begin as far as Nob Hill Neighborhood Association and Monte Vista Christian Church by just expressing your association, our association's very hearty thank you for the generosity of Monte Vista Christian Church with facilities that God has given and that you have developed. And man, it just means so much to the community that you're so generous about sharing. Thank you. This first slide says that I'm going to give you the view from Nob Hill's ozone. And I'll tell you why that is. Albuquerque well, now I am not getting it to go down. Let's see. I don't know quite what the, there it went. Okay, there we go. I think it's going to go for me now. Yeah. A lot of you have seen this iconic photograph. This is Colonel Dkb Sellers, and he is the guy that platted the first part of what we now call Nob Hill in 1916. And what he said was, he noted that most of Albuquerque was down in the valley, the Rio Grande Valley, in this ancestral valley that had wandered from side to side, but between these general banks for eons. And that was where everybody lived down there. And they did all their heating and cooking with wood or coal. So it was smoky down there. So when he saw the East Mesa, he said, well, that's all clear up there. So he said, people, you all need to move from the low zone up to the ozone. That was his little deal. This is what it looked like in 1935 in our area. And if you look down, maybe I can point for you. Yeah, can you see my little cursor? So right in here is the university, and here's Monte Vista Boulevard right here, going up at an angle. And there's Roosevelt Park. But see, that's all there was out on the East Mesa in 1935. It had started out there in 1889 with the founding of the University of New Mexico. The territorial legislature, there was no state, of course, they wanted to found a university, a penitentiary, and what they would call then an asylum. We wouldn't use that term today. But there was a stiff competition, and Santa Fe won. They got the penitentiary. And Las Vegas was second. They got what you might call, I guess, a mental hospital. Albuquerque was the runner-up, and they got the university. And now, of course, it turns out that that's much better than either of the other. But this is what the University of New Mexico looked like in 1889, excuse me, in 1892, after they had built their first building, which we now know as Hodgin Hall. You also know it was seriously remodeled several years later, but this is the way it looked in 1889. This is the young men out at football practice in 1910. This is a picture of Dkb Sellers and a friend of his up in Colorado, circa 1880. Sellers was born in Ohio in 1861, and 4 years after his birth was when Horace Greeley wrote, "Go west, young man, and grow up with the country." And that's what he did. This is a caricature of him after he arrived in Albuquerque in 1904. On his way to Albuquerque, he spent some time in Northern California where he had a fruit and tobacco brokerage, but he lost all his money in 1896. He went up to the Klondike, apparently regained some of his wealth, came back down this way, and hit Albuquerque in 1903. By 1906, he had decided that he should start developing land on the East Mesa. And this is the plat of University Heights. It was actually done in two phases, 1906 and 1916. This is Girard right here. So he platted the part west of Girard in 1906 and the first part of Nob Hill east of Girard in 1916. And I see Eleanor wanting a better look. So there's a little close-up, Eleanor. And this shows the 1906 portion. Up here is Central Avenue. And there's Yale over here. Here's my favorite street, not in Nob Hill, because that's Cornell. That's where Frontier and Saggio's are. Best food in town, except for Nob Hill. So a plat is a drawing made by a surveyor / engineer that establishes all the corners of the lots that will be developed and all the layout of the streets and where the utility easements will be. Here you have alleys between the backs of the lots. So as we were discussing before we started, Colonel Sellers, he saw that he was just south of the university, and he thought that he would give the area cachet by using these names: Yale, Harvard, Cornell, Stanford, and I guess he did. This is what it looked like immediately after the platting. That's what was up in the University Heights. This is a brochure that he made. These materials come from the Center for Southwest Research, which is housed at Zimmerman Library. And the oral history project that I'll talk about in a minute is also housed there. It's been accessed, assessed, accessed, and added into the Center for Southwest Research. So what he's said here in his brochure that this is the Coming Aristocratic Residence section of Albuquerque, an opportunity for the small investor to make his monthly savings earn a handsome profit. And there's Dkb Sellers' secretary. Here are the prices that were being charged. The cheapest prices were down south further and not on the corners. $25, friends. The more expensive ones up in the 275 area are like up on Central, right on the corner. Those were $275. His terms, by the way, were $5 down for one lot and $10 down for two lots. So the part that he developed in 1916 is this little area right here. And I'm going to take just a minute here and slow down so you can absorb this. So you see that that's his University Heights edition that he platted in 1916. And in 2016, of course, we celebrated the 100th birthday of Nob Hill, and also the 85th birthday of Monte Vista Christian Church. But that on the anniversary, the 100th anniversary of the day that he filed that plat down at the county courthouse, many Nob Hilleños went down to the courthouse and ceremonially re-recorded the plat with the county clerk, Maggie Toulouse Oliver, who's now Secretary of State. 9 years later, a group platted the Granada Heights, which is just east of Carlisle, and it's the area south of Silver. And about that same time, 1926, developers platted College View Edition and Monte Vista Edition. And Monte Vista Edition is the very special place that we are caring about a great deal today. You can see that Monte Vista Edition was crisscrossed by Monte Vista Boulevard and Campus Boulevard, where Eleanor lived for a lot of her youth. How long did you live there, Eleanor?
From 1945 till 57.
Wow.
So, yeah, we moved into a house right there at that corner.
Well, one off the corner.
Just off the corner of Campus and Monte Vista.
Is it this one?
It's the second house.
Second, yeah. It's a second house right across from Monte Vista Grade School.
Yeah. Well, I know the lady who lives there now. I'll show her that picture of you and your sister out in front of the address.
Yeah,
So,
I was 15 until we moved away to this house. We're still in the same house we moved into then.
wow. Wow. That's pretty neat. So this is the way that Nob Hill looks today. Nob Hill is not a legal term particularly. If you have a house in one of these, like Eleanor's house that was here on Campus Boulevard, the legal would say something like Lot 22 of Block 7, Monte Vista Edition. There's no place that I'm aware of in Albuquerque where it would say Lot 5, Block 7 of Nob Hill. Nob Hill was a term that Colonel Sellers popularized. He felt that that rise of Carlisle south of Central reminded him of Nob Hill in San Francisco. So he characterized the entire area as Nob Hill. And then, of course, R.B. Wagaman used that name for his shopping center that we now still call Nob Hill Business Center. There are two parts of what we today call Nob Hill that are listed historic districts in the state and national registers of historic places. And they are these two that are hatched here, Monte Vista and College View. They're called the Monte Vista and College View National Register Historic District. There are groups today, and our neighborhood association is in the leadership on this, that are helping the people of University Heights and Granada Heights and Broadmoor explore listing in the state and then ultimately in the National Register of Historic Places also. Monte Vista was platted by William Leverett Sr. And this is the house he built for his family 2 years after he platted Monte Vista. And if you go to that place at Dartmouth and Dartmouth Place, it looks a lot like that today. It's been very, very well preserved. It's had a series of very good stewards, which is a term we sometimes use for owners because we don't feel like we own these houses particularly. We feel like we're the stewards for a time, and it's our responsibility to conserve that heritage. Here's a typical house that was built in College View by hi Granny, by a builder named Beach. In a historic district, particularly a listed district, it's not necessary that every house be a fancy house where George Washington slept. That's not the idea. Every house, large or small, is a part of a historic district as long as it continues to contribute. And that means generally that a lot of the massing, the makeup, the shapes, the windows, the doors are generally preserved. And so a house like this, I haven't identified this house. I want to do that. If that looks generally like this today, that contributes to the historic character of the Monte Vista and College View Historic District. Here's a little house on South Tulane Street. That's a streamlined modern style house. Here's one on South Wellesley. Has a lot of a feeling of a Spanish Pueblo revival house. And here's one I bet you all know up at Monte Vista Boulevard and Marquette Street. This was designed by an early female architect, Beulah Fleming, certainly among the first women architects in New Mexico. Again, very well preserved today. Here's the Monte Vista plat. And here's Monte Vista Boulevard. I know you can make that out. And here's Campus Boulevard. And so again, here's a little blow up. And here's campus, here's Monte Vista. Here's campus, here's Monte Vista. And Eleanor, this is your house, right? It's just one house off of Monte Vista. I'm not helping much. So what's important to us today is this little piece of property, actually a big piece of property. It was platted where Grand would go straight through Berkeley Place to Purdue Place. And there would be 5 residential lots up on the north side and 4 on the south side. And I'm not sure what was ever built, but I know that this lot, this house was built, and that of course, that's where Scott lives. That's you guys' house, which you are good stewards of. And then, so Grand was closed. The easement or public right-of-way was transferred to Monte Vista Christian Church. And so that's now your really, really lovely and special church property. We're still studying how Monte Vista Elementary School came to be. There are those who say that William Leverett Sr. donated the property. It's not clear, but this is what it looked like shortly after it was built in 1931. And so Monte Vista Elementary is celebrating its 90th birthday this year too. There's the Monte Vista Fire Station. it's fun to see what the construction vehicles look like in 1935. It gives you a little bit of a feeling of what life was like in 1935. Here are a couple of pieces that I think several of you are somewhat familiar with. This little piece about the Williamsons, who were leaders at the time, and then this neat little piece about the groundbreaking. The only thing is, I'm just now looking at this. I think this is a groundbreaking of an addition. I think I was a little bit, didn't pay too much attention there. So that's the groundbreaking for an addition. Still a neat shot.
Yeah, which is Sombra.
Oh, really?
Oh,
it
what
is.
It says.
Yeah, you're right. That's the groundbreaking of my old church.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which Monte Vista helped to start. So that's part of our history.
Right.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Here's something, if you can see this second picture from the top, this is a little booklet, a little magazine that was put out every month by Albuquerque National Bank. And this was the issue from March of 1936. And there's a picture of Monte Vista Christian Church. And it says, on Purdue Place, Monte Vista, completed in December, now serving its congregation. We talked a little bit about the Nob Hill Business Center, or Nob Hill Shopping Center, as it's often called. This is a postcard, and we are told that R.B. Wagaman conceived this idea on VJ Day in 1945. And in 1947, he was building it and completing it. Over here on this corner, and some of you, I have no doubt, can tell me things about this, but here's where the Strombergs had their men and boys wear. And they were instrumental. I think they had an ownership position, if not the ownership position, in the shopping center when it was built. And you can see that the cars at that time were parked all the way around, but not in the middle. And this is where Scalo now has its outdoor dining, and this is where the Cinnamon Cafe has its outdoor dining. Still has what we think are the original Nob Hill Business Center lettering up here. It has these lovely towers, which characterize that streamlined, modern, and Mediterranean styles. And the designers even put in a nice little touch of Mediterranean style on this. It did something, it broke some ground architecturally and commercially, did this shopping center, because commercial development up until that time was little 25 and 30 foot wide lots, which you do see on Central and Nob Hill. And that's certainly what had seen downtown prior to this. This is one large lot that was then configured and built as a number of spaces, commercial spaces, all around a central parking area. And it's wonderful that it's so well preserved. It's had wonderful responsible stewards through the years, and it's really a wonderful icon for Nob Hill. This is what it looked like under construction. Here's South Amherst, which, here's the bus stop. And you can see it's a highly sloping lot. I'd like to talk a little bit about the celebrations that we shared in 2016, and I know several of you, most of you were involved in that because Monte Vista was having its 85th birthday. So we got together on one of our celebrations. The neighborhood association put together a number of celebrations with various members of the community. One of them was the pet parade and fair. We did that in collaboration with with several animal welfare groups, and they were the recipients of the earnings. Here on the left is a recreation of the Dkb Sellers Nob Hill sign, and there's the lady with her little pet pig, and there's a little RV. That's not the pig's RV, but that was an RV that someone was making, and they awarded that to someone who won one of the contests. It's a little doghouse. And there's a little dog. He was enjoying the after party. I'm not sure what he was drinking. We had an insiders tour where we opened up several historic spaces in Nob Hill where the community could come and go inside and see things that you wouldn't normally get to see. We worked on that with the School of Architecture and Planning at the university, and then we're able to donate proceeds to the School of Architecture and Planning, where they have a program in historic preservation. We did an oral history project. We received a generous grant from Bernalillo County, and we used that to videotape a number of tradition bearers. And one of those tradition bearers is here today. There she is. She gave a pretty beautiful interview. And there's a couple of her friends and your friends and my friends, John and Barney, who shared their stories. And this really gave a beautiful picture of Monte Vista and Place of the Faith community in Nob Hill. I'm really glad we got those stories, Eleanor.
Yeah, I am too, because those two guys are gone now.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm no spring chicken.
You're doing pretty great, though. So Nob Hill Neighborhood Association linked up with Monte Vista. What we learned about the 35-cent chicken dinners in that interview, Barney told about that. Barney, as a boy, worshiped at that, I guess it was a commercial space on North 3rd Street where a group of believers started to worship, and then they formed Monte Vista Christian Church. And he said, of course, you had to raise a lot of funds. And so the ladies of the church, he said, put on a chicken dinner, 35-cent chicken dinner. And it's not clear how often they did that. Maybe we can find that out in some of your records. But together, Monte Vista Christian Church and Nob Hill Neighborhood Association in 2016 recreated the 35-cent chicken dinner at Monte Vista. There's Lou and his band who provided music. And Nob Hill Main Street is a sister organization of ours, which is kind of like the people in the commercial district. That is a preservation-based effort to protect and vitalize historic commercial districts. So that's Nob Hill Main Street. They were instrumental here. They got a lot of food and a couple of great chefs involved, and Monte Vista provided that wonderful kitchen and dining area. And we actually fed very many people for 35 cents each. And a lot of people put in more, but I'm telling you, this was one of the big events of Nob Hill that I've ever seen in my many years. And it was attended by a lot of people who you just don't see on a Thursday night board meeting. They're Nob Hileños who heard and they said, yeah, I want a 35-cent chicken dinner. And they brought their families and they paid 35 cents each and they were grateful. So it was a beautiful day, a beautiful time for everyone who loves Nob Hill. A really outstanding example of how groups and people can work together. And we did raise a lot of money because the food was donated by Shamrock Foods, and the facilities, of course, were provided by Monte Vista, and a lot of the work from all sorts of groups. And we developed a very large donation to St. Martin's Hospitality Center. It was a really neat experience. One of the fun things was the Bandelier Elementary jump rope team performed. That was a sweet, sweet performance. And there was a little fishing pond, which kids love so much. That was a beautiful, beautiful experience. So I'm going to wrap up in the next couple of minutes. And I think I have some pictures here that give you an idea of what Nob Hill looked like historically and celebrate what it looks like today, which in so many cases is very well preserved. It is a historic resource that so many people prize and so many people celebrate. I'll bet most of you know this image, and that told a story, didn't it?
Yep.
And
I have it hanging on my wall.
you do?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's neat.
Illuminated.
And it has lights.
Oh,
That's
it has
where
the
I've
lights,
seen
yeah.
it. I knew I'd seen it and I couldn't remember where. Now I
Yeah.
remember.
I
It was
love,
on my wall, and the price of gas, that's what's interesting. I don't think you can see it in this, but it's $37.9.
37 for the premium, Eleanor, and
Yeah.
34 for regular.
Right.
And up here you see the Colonel Sanders chicken. I think that's the place that has been known at, well, let's see, Raging Shrimp, and now a new business called Clown Dog, where they have like state fair food.
Yeah.
People's Flowers down there on the right. People's
Yeah, it's
Flowers.
still there.
They're still kicking, boy. The Travel Lodge is there.
Still there.
Aztec, unfortunately, is gone.
Yep.
There was a Bacchus up there, not the Bacchus that most of us know down on Wellesley, but they had another restaurant up here. And Eleanor, you tell a story about how you went up to the Brass Kettle for hamburgers and French fries.
We would walk up there every Friday night to get hamburger and fries.
Which was kind of novel at the time, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. That was a new thing.
And where did you go to watch the TV out on the street?
Oh, there was a furniture store on the, what side? The north side of Central, right up the street from where I lived. And we'd walk up there. I can't remember the name of the furniture store, but before 1949, and watch the Lone Ranger through the window. That's before we had a TV.
How very cool. How very cool. Well, here's the way that this little scene looked in '69. And this is a poor reproduction from 2017 where Kenny Hinkes has just built this Carlisle Lofts on the right.
Yeah.
So that's a sort of a thing that is happening where uses are becoming denser in Nob Hill's commercial district. And that is an inevitable result of more people wanting to live there and people who have the means to acquire property and build larger projects. This one is the 3500 block. If you look on the right, that's now the Fan Tang. That was an that was a standard station. And so here's the way that this looked. This might have been where you watched TV. I don't know, Eleanor. But this is the way this little block looked in 1938. And this is the way it looks today. So the scale has been respected and preserved, although the finishes have all been changed. And then the little tower at the standard station remains, and that's been preserved.
Yeah.
So it's good that they have preserved the scale, even though they have changed the finishes.
Yeah.
This is where the Dr. Pepper Bottling Company was in 1938, and Zacatecas was there for some time, and it still has the texture, the form, although not the material, so that you can see that it had this large bay in the middle, which was probably instrumental in the bottling industry that they did. Up here on the left of the scene is the place in Nob Hill, which again demonstrates this idea of densifying the residential uses. And people would like for everything to stay small like this, but they recognize private property rights, and we do have some reasonably strict limits on heights. So at least it won't be any more than 3 stories along Central in the area below Aliso. Up above Aliso, it's a little higher. This is a little development at Silver and Wellesley. These were originally little areas. They were residential or office. Now they've been upgraded to commercial, where people can have a restaurant or some kind of shop, but the rent isn't so high because rents on Central are, I think you'd say, astronomical. And most people can't start a little business on, with a rent of $3,000 plus a month. So some of them go over to little areas off Central like this. This is common now. Here's the Jones Motor Company at the opening celebration in 1939. And this is what it looked like in 2017, and it's what it looks like in 2021 as well. It's repurposed. That's a very popular concept in preservation because it doesn't make sense to have a car dealer in that space in 2021. And I don't think any of the car makers would allow it. They have very strict requirements for the area and lots of space and certain architectural design. So, but it is appropriate still for commercial uses today, but they have to be different. And in this case, it's generally, for the last 20 years, it was Kelly's, and then it was sold, and now it may be resold, but at least it's now being repurposed for new tenants.
Yeah.
There's the fire station shortly after its completion, and there it is today. And it does need some maintenance, but it is preserved, and it is viable as a space that can, as a resource that can continue and be preserved and still function. There's the Lobo block. You can see the Lobo Theater with the marquee, and then to the right of that is the Hyder block, and that's what that looks like today. Again, surfaces somewhat changed. The massing here on the Crazy Fish somewhat changed, but generally in pretty good condition and still viable for uses today. There's a neat little shot of Monte Vista School when it was 16 years old. I like all the kids with their outfits and their blue jeans, and the boys all in blue jeans, but the one boy in the shorts. And this is Monte Vista in 2017, and very well preserved and very well cared for. The community has stood up for Monte Vista Elementary many times when planners were looking at selling it or discontinuing its use as a public school. But it seems to be on solid footing now. There's the Beulah Fleming House shortly after it was built, and there it is today. This is the Conoco station at Carlisle and Central. It's on the northeast corner. Golden Eagle is the most recent owner and user. And I thought you might appreciate knowing, if you don't already know, that this has been acquired by a emergency veterinary practice, and they are going to repurpose it as a veterinary practice, veterinary hospital. And that's very optimistic for those of us who love these historic resources, because several developers looked at it to tear it down and do, the 3-story lofts. And that would be a shame, because it really is a wonderful historic resource. But it's not a good spot for a gas station in 2021. And it's not even a good spot probably for a lot of retail, because so much retail, as you know all about why retail is difficult and often unviable today. So we're glad to see that someone like a veterinary practice can see a way to repurpose this building and to thereby preserve it. So the community here in Nob Hill stands for a lot of things in common with Monte Vista Christian Church, and we do celebrate diversity, and we celebrate times together, social times, to enjoy one another, to have dialogue, talk about ways to improve our community. We like to work together. We like to work and celebrate things that are important to us. We like politics. We like petitions. And we really care for our neighbors. Glad to be neighbors with all of you guys. So, any questions? It is 12:50, so Dawn might be ready to go back to work.
I love this picture of Monte Vista there.
That's pretty precious.
Very
You know when that
precious.
was taken?
That must have been,
It looks like 50s.
I'm not sure, Eleanor. To tell you the truth, I think I shot that over in your building, over by Bethany Hall. And so you could check, but I get the impression that was maybe 90 years ago when the first part of the church was new, but I'm not sure.
It's possible.
Well, that view didn't change for a long time. We had wedding pictures there from 61, and that part of the facade was just the same in 61. And by the way, the Grand Street had not yet been closed in 61, because we parked
really?
up front.
Wow. So this was kind of on Grand, the front of the entry.
Correct.
Yeah.
That was kind of on Grand.
Correct.
Oh.
So.
And then when was the chapel added?
Steen Hall.
The Kiva Chapel or the
Or Steen Hall.
Steen Hall.
Well, the one where we have our association has met a lot of the time. I've never heard any other term.
Well, that's new.
That's chapel. Yeah. I'm not sure when that was done. Wasn't that done in the 80s?
Well, where we meet in Bethany now is.
The
but
chapel in
Stone Hall
Bethany.
was built in I think in the 40s,
Yeah, I would say late 40s.
late 40s. Because our youth groups could meet there. I became a member of Monte Vista in 51, and Steen Hall was there at that time.
Gary
It was-
Steen Hall is the one that you go down the stairs from the
Yeah.
outside where some of our addiction recovery groups meet.
Oh,
That's
you mean,
below the chapel.
And Williamson Hall was built in 55 because our youth group was waiting for it to finish being built so we could meet there.
And that's the building where the office, where elevation and all
Yeah,
that.
that's across.
That's
Yeah,
Williamson.
we're renting now.
That was the west half of that complex. The east half was built maybe in 59, 60. They were not built at the same time.
Yeah,
And the Williamson building is where the big Kiva Chapel is, the big cylinder kind of real tall chapel, just off,
Right.
where they put together the newsletters with the tables on the side of the office wall.
yes, yes.
Straight through that gate is that Kiva Chapel, just right there on the right.
yeah, the youth groups would use that for our chapel at times.
No, that was later around.
And we're
Yeah.
not getting the newsletter, Gary, since COVID started and they're doing it separate. We've not been getting one. So
I'm
could you
gonna-
ask them to drop one in the mail slot if nobody's there?
I'm going to go over there when we finish, and I'll put about 10 or 12, 15 of them in that slot.
Well, Lynn is there right now, so if
So
you're going
all
over
you
there right
guys-
now, you can actually meet her.
Okay, all of you guys can grab one there. And that's a good, a little close for me, which is to thank you again for your generosity. That's where Ron Halpga separates all the newsletters so that all the people who deliver can grab them and take them out to all the 3,000 houses in Nob Hill. Another example of the real heartfelt generosity of Monte Vista. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. That's
Yeah,
a
thanks.
wonderful journey down memory lane for sure.
Yeah, for me, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to go to the Lobo Theater for 10 cents. You could spend the whole afternoon watching movies. As many times as you wanted. They didn't kick you out after each one.
And that's still in pretty great shape.
Yeah.
It'd be great if someone would make it into a theater, wouldn't it?
I could walk up there to go to the theater. My mom delighted to let me do that, give me 10 cents to go
Get her out of the house.
and a nickel for a candy bar.
I was going to ask, so how much was the candy bar and popcorn?
A nickel.
Wow.
I know, I can't.
Eleanor, wasn't there a bowling alley next door?
Yeah, there was one somewhere, not right next door, but I never got to do that.
I don't know if you ever knew Robert Gleason. That's a long shot, but
No.
he was a pin boy at that bowling alley, and he said that the pin boys, if there was no business, they could run next door for free and watch the movies in the Lobo. And then if they ever needed a pin boy, then they'd run over and say, "Hey, get over here and get to work."
Yep, but I think that was that and the Cactus Theater. We'd go to drive-in to the Cactus Theater almost every weekend to see movies.
Hmm.
My folks would put us in our pajamas because they knew we'd fall asleep.
I remember those days myself, not here, but going places with my parents in the pajamas because we'd be out before we headed home. What special history that Monte Vista has been a part of.
Yeah.
I look forward to planning what we can do together as neighborhood and community going forward. as we celebrate our anniversaries and look to a new phase of mission for Monte Vista, and very hopeful plans, it looks like, for Nob Hill as well.
Good.
Yeah. Gary, you said you know the person that lives in the house I used to live in?
I don't know her real well, but she went on one of our architecture walks a couple years ago, and she pointed out that house.
Yeah, I just wondered if I went and knocked on the door and said, I'd like to see what it looks like now.
Well, let's do a little email. I'm going to send Dawn that link so they can look at the oral history shorts, the one with you in it, and then there's 4 others with other people.
Yeah.
And then at that time, we'll see about getting you together with her.
Oh, that'd be fun.
I'd be happy to help that
Yeah,
work.
I literally grew up in that house because I was 15 when we left it, and 3 when we bought it. So it was the main house I lived in before, and then only 3 years in this house before I went away to college.
Wow. Wow. Pretty great.
Yeah.
It's great seeing all you guys today.
Good to see you too,
Yeah,
Gary.
look
for you
Thank
in the
you so
neighborhood.
much.
You're so welcome.